Hi, I'm Brad Denton at Denton Peterson. Wanted to get online and just give a little bit of information about some of the new employment laws that are related to this coronavirus COVID-19 pandemic situation. Ordinarily, we'd probably do something a little bit more polished, but I wanted to get this information out as quickly as possible, and so I'm just using my webcam and trying to get some helpful stuff out to my clients and others on the internet. The information relating to coronavirus and COVID-19 is changing obviously day by day, and these laws are likely to continue to change. We'll be in this situation for weeks or months to be sure. So take all this with a grain of salt. It's being recorded as of March 24th, 2020, and hopefully will be helpful. We just want to get as much information out as we can quickly for our clients. As many of you know, a national emergency was declared on March 13th, and it was on March 16th that the CDC had given direction that there should be no gatherings of 10 people or more. In Arizona and in all other states, a state of emergency has been declared. And so I wanted to talk a little bit about some of the new laws that have been drafted as a result. As of this video being created, the parties in Washington are still fighting over a lot of what's going to be implemented, but there are some things that we do know. The first thing I want to talk about is the Emergency Family Medical Leave Expansion Act. Many of you, of course, have heard of the Family Medical Leave Act. This is an expansion of that. The expansion allows for 12 weeks leave for those who have a child whose school or preschool or nursery is being closed for purposes relating to the coronavirus or the COVID-19 outbreak. It applies to entities with less than 500 employees. It applies to employees who have been present with that employer for 30 days. And they're entitled to 10 days of unpaid leave. And after that, they're entitled to 2/3 of their regular rate with certain dollar amount limits that are in the Act. They're entitled at the end of the leave to return to the same or equivalent position that they were in. And that Expansion Act does not cover employees who just don't want to come to work just to avoid exposure to coronavirus. So that's a little bit of an outline of what that act includes, and we expect that regulations implementing that act will be forthcoming soon, but for now, that's the broad outlines of what we've got. Another act that was recently passed by the federal government is the Emergency Paid Sick Leave Act. It covers, again, employers that have less than 500 employees. There's no minimum tenure for employees to be covered by this Sick Leave Act, though. Somebody who just started the day before they get sick would be covered by this act. In that case, employers must give emergency paid sick leave if there's a COVID-19 related situation. So for a full-time employee, that would mean 80 hours of paid leave. For a part-time employee, that would mean the paid leave for the paid hours for 2 weeks for 2 weeks averaged over the number of hours over the last 6 months. So if they averaged 10 hours a week over the past 6 months, they would be entitled to 20 hours of sick leave. It's immediately available, and an employer is not entitled to make employees use other type of sick leave or other types of leave before they're entitled to use this new sick leave that's been created. And this is in addition to other sick leave or other kinds of leave that the employer might be offering. There's also a provision that says that an employer cannot discriminate or retaliate against an employee who takes this sort of leave. And there's very broad criteria to determine who's covered by this new law. It could be anyone who's covered by a quarantine or an isolation order. It could be anyone who has been told by a doctor that they need to self-isolate or self-quarantine. It can include anyone who has symptoms of COVID-19 or anyone who's caring for an individual who's been quarantined or advised to self-quarantine. It also includes individuals who are caring for a child whose school is closed or any employee who's experiencing COVID-19 type symptoms. Any of those people would be included in the class of employees who are covered by this new Emergency Paid Sick Leave Act. Employers are also required to post a notice regarding the law's requirements. We don't yet have from the Department of Labor what the requirements are for those notices. That is expected to come out soon, probably a week to 10 days, but employers will need to comply with that notice once it comes out. And any failure to pay sick leave wages that are granted by this new Emergency Act is treated as a failure to pay minimum wage under the Fair Labor Standards Act. Now, you may be familiar that those laws can be fairly draconian. An employee who's not paid their minimum wage, or in this case, their emergency sick leave, is entitled to receive liquidated damages, which means double pay most of the time, and they're entitled to receive attorney's fees for any action they have to bring in order to reclaim that money. So employers, you need to be really careful to comply with this act, and obviously we've been consulting with our clients about how to make sure that they comply with that. Again, the regulations on all this are pending. Some of these descriptions that I've given may be broadened or may be narrowed by the regulations that are eventually implemented. And there are a lot of other issues that are in flux, like whether an employee can refuse to come to work under certain circumstances, how reduced work schedules or reduced work pay is going to be affected by these new laws, how much to pay an employee if they work part week, if they are an exempt employee or a non-exempt employee. Those sorts of things. And we expect there to be rapidly continuing developments on this thing. If you have any questions, please call us. We'll be doing our best to keep updated on the situation and guide our clients through this difficult but hopefully temporary situation. Our goal is always to help our clients get back to profitability as quickly as possible, mitigate risk, and succeed.